All right. We're live.
Okay, we're live. Awesome. All right, good evening / afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order at 5:44 p.m. now. Okay, this is our March 29th meeting of the Safety and Technology Committee. Taking quick attendance. We're going to start with review of committee charges. So during our last meeting, we talked about committee charges. We have drafted some. Thank you for those that provided some feedback and rewarded some of the charges. So this is our current version of the charges. The Greenburgh CSD Safety and Technology Committee will be the conduit between district administration and board of trustees regarding the work conducted in the areas of safety and technology. The Safety and Technology Committee exists to perform the following functions: review current safety and security items of importance in the district, evaluate current safety and security processes and make recommendations for enhancements, review current technology items of importance in the district, and evaluate current technology processes and make recommendations for enhancements. This is the latest updated version of what we had agreed on. Is there a motion to adopt these charges?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. To yell through text here. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda: review and adoption of previous meeting minutes. Ready. So I will go through this a little bit quick. The Safety and Technology Committee met on Monday, February 6th. We called the meeting to order at 5:41 p.m. In attendance, myself, Trustee Valen, Trustee Warner, Mr. Leese, Dr. Iverson was not present. Dr. Macaluso and Ms. Raymond were present. We adopted the previous meeting minutes. We updated the team on the June meeting date and ended up agreeing on that we wouldn't forego a June meeting, but if we needed to, we could add one back towards late May. Committee charges, which we actually just adopted now, we had a draft at that point in time. Safety, we talked about lobby guard and how that system was working, in particular for when visitors are going to each building, swiping in, and whether there were additional units available that could be used during major events, moving up ceremonies in June, etc. We also talked about the principals having the ability to request another machine and future options that are coming along that line. We also had a brief conversation on vape detectors and the potential for vape detectors deployment at the middle high school in RJ Valley. They were still being evaluated at the time. We talked about another technology that was being looked at by the district called evolved scanners, which is for gathering information on large spaces, just trying to enhance our security. We also talked about technology, the website update, some new vendors that we're evaluating, an update on the one-to-one device program, an update on the status of Chromebook devices, what had arrived, how those devices were deployed. We also had a presentation on Tech This Out, various initiatives that happened during National Data Privacy Week, events that happened at the school buildings, Highview Elementary, as well as at the secondary level. We had an update on the K-12 technology PLC structures, network infrastructures, updates that are being planned, 5-year strategic plan and budget planning, wireless connectivity, hardware enhancements that are being considered, and bandwidth planning. At that point, we went into new business and we closed open session at 6:18 p.m. From there, we had conversations about safety and security, things that were closed session items, and then from there, we adjourned the meeting. Okay, let's go back to today's agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the previous meeting minutes, or do we need to make any corrections to those minutes? Okay.
I move we adopt the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes adopted. Perfect. All right, well, moving on to today's agenda. So safety. We just talked about a lot of these things. We're getting updates now. So Triton vape detectors. Mr. Leese, would you like to provide some?
Sure. So the vape detectors are in now. We received them and they've been identified where they're going to be in the Woodlands campus. Currently, we have contractors coming in to start to scope out the work. We have to actually wire them in. So we're going to be needing to run the wiring first. So we're doing that work this week, the walkthroughs to do the site surveys and get the quote for what it will cost to wire them all in. We suspect that some of this actually will be supplemented by the facilities group, and in partnership with Mr. Cablice, we're working together. So I think some of their crew will do some of the work, and then some of the more complex runs we'll just have done by our contractor. But we expect that in the coming weeks that we'll be able to have them in. The next step will be to roll out the software component of that and then talk about process.
These devices are PoE based off of.
They're PoE based. We're thinking that we'll dedicate them to their own switch and put them on a VLAN separate.
So
they're separate from the regular traffic and the network. Kind of put them in their own space.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on those?
I remember there were some issues, am I thinking a couple meetings back, as to about false alarms? Are these the better option, or what?
Yep. So of
What's the
the
solution on that?
of the ones, these come the most highly recommended. And in comparison with reaching out kind of to the regional group of other tech directors, these seem to be the more popular ones. I think at the end of the day, none are going to come in at 100% foolproof to those types of situations. But again, a lot of it we can also mitigate in our placement. So if we're a little more careful with how we place them,
Okay.
we can minimize some of those potential false positives.
Okay. It looks like Dr. Macaluso is joining us. Let me update the attendance real quick. Hello, Dr. Macaluso. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late.
No worries at all. All right, so that is the update on the vape detectors. I presume, and this is a question, I presume that the building level administration is participating in walkthroughs to help identify the locations and all that's being coordinated, right, for those vape detectors?
That's right. They were actually pivotal in creating that initial layout. So from there, they've handed it to us so we can do the technical and install.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, moving along to the next topic on the agenda, safety audit. Ms. Raymond, would you like to talk on that one a little bit?
Well, we had our safety audit, and we had our town hall. Gosh, I don't remember. March 21st,
Yeah.
someplace around there. And Dr. Moralia will be working with all of the schools. We did have a follow-up meeting with him at our administrator meeting. Last week, Dr. Iverson had invited him to that meeting to speak with all of the administrators regarding the audit, and to also acknowledge that he has started working with some schools, and that he and his team will be here to work with the rest and to help them with their safety plans and the app, correct?
Correct. And the TAP app is part of that, which comes with the package and part of the recommendations for helping us to just better tighten up our communications.
And March 15th was the town hall.
Town hall is March 15th, thank you.
Okay. And
I will be working with him. I think, maybe not directly with him, but he has another representative who just works on grants. That grant will be opening April 1st. I will be working with them to get different equipment and things here that we need. And in conjunction with that, I've already started working with Motorola on a COPS grant, it's called, to upgrade all of our walkie-talkie systems. Hopefully they can help us with the repeater on this building. And I've had 2 meetings with them, still have to go over the application with them, and they have an 88% success in getting grants for schools. If we do get a grant, we would have to match 25% of the award that we get.
Is the end of the equipment in the budget?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure if it would be under the budget, or would it be a federal, I gotta figure out where the grant would go. I don't,
But I mean,
it might
it's
be.
Is there federal
match.
funding or does it come out of the general fund? That's your-
Oh, I see what you're
25%
saying.
match.
25 match, we'd probably either have to take it out of there, yes, out of the general.
That's what I was looking
Correct.
at. Sorry to interrupt. You mentioned that, the grant for equipment and things like, that. Is that include the signage that was mentioned, the signage that we need to, put in the classrooms? And improve signage for.
The hallways, if
The
people can find
hallways
their
as
way
well,
around.
as, you know, identifying classrooms from the outside.
That could, yes, it could include everything and anything that would pertain to security.
Because if it's more to clean that, I want to also include that in the current year budget, so that
Yes.
seems like.
I would think it might be faster and more, we would be able to afford that in the budget and use money in a grant for something more costly. Or, because we were thinking like more security cameras, those detectors in the rooms.
As long as we're planning, because the signage seems like an easy fix, so as long as we're planning for that and not
Yes.
just leaving it on the to-do list, sorry. And then you said you continue to work with them, just thinking ahead to the annual district-wide emergency plans as well. You mentioned
So
the building level, do we have a timeframe for when the work with them will be finished and when we might start, after budget season, when we might start doing that?
Well, actually, I actually started thinking about when to have our first district-wide safety meeting, because after we go over the plan, and, you know, it has to sit out there for 30 days, blah, 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 it's gotta be done and uploaded by October 1st. When I was given the task of doing the district-wide safety plan, Dr. Morelia is the one that helped me write that. So he is already ahead of the game with me. That's who Brandon Cruz from Southern Westchester BOCES referred me to, and he helped me a lot with that wording. I think I wouldn't have a problem or an issue adding some of that stuff in there. I just don't know how fast we're gonna be able to do it, what we could include, but I can consult him and ask him that. Actually, I was gonna ask him to help.
And then since we're on that topic, I believe that this year we now need to officially incorporate, I mean, we already have a separate weather-related emergency plan. Now I think that needs to officially be embedded into the district-wide emergency plan this year, but when we get to that, we'll.
Okay.
That'll be the discussion.
So I wanted to start those maybe after. No, I was thinking after we get back from spring break, maybe sometime towards the end of, after you guys
After
adopt the
the
budget,
18th.
after the
Yeah.
18th, maybe
Yeah.
start setting up the district-wide safety plan meeting, so that I'm sure we're gonna have to have more than one, and I don't wanna rush it.
Right.
So.
Great. The one question I have on the TAP app is, has the selection of folks that will actually receive the TAP app, has that conversation started? Someone talking to the folks that, I guess, security members would receive it, right? Building level administration would receive it, but are those conversations happening already with folks, or is that gonna be in a little bit of time once you get the app set up and all that?
No, this isn't going to be a tech-driven process. This will be emergency response, and it's a command plan response. So this is being worked out through Dr. Iverson's office, Mrs. Raymond, Dr. Macluso, the principals, and then it will work down to the administrative cabinet, and of course the safety staff, and then it will trickle down. But it'll all go through the emergency planning, and part of the work, the greater work with CPLS. So yes, all of those conversations are happening right now.
And then in terms of the actual deployment and installation, is it something that's straightforward and folks can just do it, or do we have to kind of guide them on how to?
It is, it's pretty straightforward once it comes down to it. So whether it's Android or Apple-based, if it's a phone, if they're available in the app stores, it's downloadable. The integration for them, we can do a lot of it on the back end because we'll just push all the users and set up single sign-on. And really for them, it'll be giving them probably one pager or a link with a resource, QR code kind of thing, so they can just work themselves into it. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, that helps. That helps deployment, right? Otherwise it doesn't.
Right, yeah, it's actually because of its ease of integration with other systems, there's not a lot of manual overhead for us on this. It's a pretty small lift.
Awesome. All right. Next conversation topic here, safety management envelope.
So the district, we've been working in collaboration and having greater discussions around better enhancing the safety and security protection envelope of all of our campuses. So we've been collecting information from other vendors. When we look at the door access system, the visitor management system, and all of the camera systems, bring them all under one suite and command central, along again with the emergency response tools. So that'll just help us consolidate everything and include all the other features, panic buttons, the things that we've talked about into one umbrella. That will make it a one-stop shop for all of these pieces. So we're still in the exploration phase, I would say, at this point, and that's why it's not detail specific with a particular vendor, just getting the information around all the different pieces, how it'll fit into our current infrastructure, the implications for us on what we would need to do to really tie all of those pieces together so we can do that with some intentionality and plan that and present that and budget for that properly.
And I presume a lot of that will theoretically come from that grant you were referencing.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Any questions on that?
Yes, last time I think, my note here says that we bought new machines for lobby guard and they would be installed by the end of the year, then we'll be updates. Are my notes incorrect?
Yep, I still believe that we're on target for that. We're in the process of configuring them since our last conversation. We've mapped out where those locations are, make sure that they have the drops and everything we need to install them. We are waiting on a piece from Lobby Guard with the registration of them. They're kind of helping us work through a piece, and then we should be moving forward with actually getting them in place. I see that work happening over the course of the next few weeks within April.
So before moving updates.
Without a doubt, we're well within our time frame for meeting that goal ahead of schedule.
And then you mentioned the new infrastructure for the envelope that you guys are talking about. When we constructing the vestibule over the next month or so, I guess whatever pad you're using, if you're already doing the wiring for whatever we currently have, right? So that's just a matter of switching out the and everything. So,
Yeah.
That's all gonna be taken care of. We don't have to take apart a new door to put something new in, is what I want to do.
Right, no, since this is a new construction, we really have the opportunity to not only replicate what we have in there, but to build the extra capacity in for future expansion, however and whatever direction we're going to go in. So yes, that's been a consideration and part of that plan.
Right. Let's move on to the next piece of the agenda, technology.
So some good news on the technology front. We just moved last night at the board meeting, and thank you for the support, moved some funds to be able to purchase another round of student one-to-one devices in the current year. So now that has been approved formally, the budget transfer's already been made, and we've already started moving forward with getting that order in place. So I hope to have them on site in the next 2 to 3 weeks because of the other work that we've been doing with our asset management and our integrations. As they come, they should come already enrolled into our Google suite of tools, so we don't have to physically touch them. We should be able to, and because they'll be enrolled in Google, they'll integrate with our asset management, so then we really just have to barcode scan them, assign them to a student, and hand them out. So we've really streamlined a lot of our process over the course of the year and the behind the curtains work. So now as we do this future expansion, we'll be working far more efficiently. So I'm excited about this next round to come in alignment with that. We've also, in working with Dr. Macaluso, formalized a replacement schedule over a 4-year cycle. We talked about this a little bit briefly about how that model will look into groupings. So we've formalized that into a formal plan now, so we can implement that starting with the 23-24 school year. Other good news, interactive displays. So there are a number of interactive displays throughout the district in all the buildings that are aged and coming to end of life or have exceeded end of life. We're able to do another group of creative moving around, but within the budget codes that we have, to do some of those upgrades this year. So in all of the buildings, we're going to be doing some upgrades to the interactive displays in the classrooms to make sure that they're in place, and then we can build on that into next year. We've done some walkthroughs with the principals to prioritize which spaces we'll focus on. Actually, tomorrow I'm walking through with the vendor to map out the installation and then start that process to getting that planning done. But that'll happen between now and the end of the year, and hopefully sooner than later. And we'll have them in the classrooms. So that's a great, that's a good win for us to do some of that classroom tech improvement that we've been needing to do.
So 2 questions real quickly. On the one-to-one devices, approximately how many devices are we ordering?
I'm hoping, and I'm waiting for the final quote. I'm looking at a couple different models, but I want to stay consistent with what we've been doing. I'm hoping we're going to come in right around another 100 devices. Not 120, not quite 125,
Okay.
but roughly it may be a few less. 80 to 100 range. I don't want to pinpoint it exactly yet. I can happily report exactly how many once I get the full quote back and we calculate that to what we've transferred.
Okay. And then my second question, do you have a question on that?
When you're done.
On the Chromebooks?
Yes.
Okay.
So you mentioned that we'll start the replacement schedule starting with the 23-24 school year. Does that mean we're no longer going to collect everything this summer and redistribute this summer, or?
No, that's
is
part of that
a
plan.
Is that a different discussion?
No, I think it's the same discussion. It's part of that plan. So collecting everything and doing a full reset and introducing the year 1 replacement within that cycle of building onto the existing fleet and then starting the replacement cycle fresh in 23-24 with the phase 1 of the 4-year cycle.
Starting the replacement. So the summer collection would not have any new devices apart from these 80 to 100?
Other than what we purchased in this school year. So those would be the only newer devices in the fleet, but I'm not counting them as new devices for the implementation of this replacement cycle. They're part of the existing fleet.
We have summer school.
Yeah.
And what was the rollout plan for that? We talked about this before. What was the rollout for that?
So we've had preliminary conversations. So the expectation is after this coming break that we'll start sitting down and actually doing some formalized planning. But since we're bringing everything back in, that first round can be reallocated if we need to set up carts. My expectation would be that we're sending things home for summer school unless there's specific needs, that we can do that in a cart-based model at location.
Okay.
So they'll come in, the devices do what they got to do for the day, put them back.
Put them back. If there's something specific, we've certainly now built the infrastructure and process. So if they need to take a loaner for a specific activity or assignment, they can take out a loaner for the night and then make sure it comes back the next day. We can track that and keep it accountable.
Any more questions on Chromebooks? Okay. So my next question is about the interactive displays you covered. Is that the new model we're going with? We used to do the smart boards in the classrooms. Like, what are you guys gearing towards now?
No, the new lines. So this is an in focus, but they're similar. The models that we're going to be using are new lines.
Okay. And their basic, obviously display capabilities, they still use the marker type things on the touch screen?
Yeah, both. You can do it either way, but primarily you can do it with the marker. You also have all the wireless functions and streaming functions that you can use other devices, so you're not just bound to it with the wired device. And then we can also do collaborative work. So if we have larger spaces where we have multiple boards, we can stream across multiple boards and do work that way as well.
Do they have anything in terms of video conferencing, or are we leaving that out?
We haven't added, no, they don't have any integrated video conferencing features.
Okay. Are you considering, so in the past, at one point in time, we used to have, David, you probably remember this well, we had one example where the children were on a call, on a video call, I think with Singapore, or I forgot, somewhere in Asia, they were.
There's one with Singapore, and there was one model of a small country on the west coast of Africa. Okay, which one you're talking about?
And they were doing live, like, cultural exchanges and sharing the languages, and the kids got a real kick out of it. So the only reason I mentioned that is if that ever happened again, I'm curious if these displays would have the functionality so you can plug in something external to it if you needed to.
Absolutely. So very similar to how we have the setup here, it would mimic that process. And we do have the cameras kind of in-house to be able to support that capacity. And that's exactly kind of the expectation, right, in alignment with all of our ID work that's going on in the classrooms and around the district. That kind of work is exactly in alignment with all of that philosophy.
Thank you. All right. Any more questions on the interactive displays before we move on? Okay. The next section, website. I know you really wanted to talk about this. So.
I do. The majority of this, I think, will probably be a closed session discussion just to work out the final details and discuss the last of the kind of questions that were related around cost and planning and some of the logistical components. If there's any kind of open questions that are left on the table, now would be the time to ask them. I am looking to have a formalized kind of commitment of a direction today. And not just for myself and the urgency around wanting to get this work done, but meeting the timelines of depending on what direction we choose. There are other timelines that we're up against.
Sure. So I'm just going to put a little context on this for the viewers at home that are not privy to the whole conversation. So essentially, we decided that we need to revamp our website. And in order to do that, we're looking for a platform that will allow easier modifications and updates to the website. So there's a potential list of vendors that we've been talking about. We'll talk about that more during closed session. But the point is to make a recommendation to the board. Hey, this is the vendor the Safety and Technology Committee recommends we move forward with. Obviously, we'll go to the Board of Education approval. The Board of Education approved it, then we would purchase that piece of that platform. And the goal is that moving forward, as opposed to the past where we had a specific mobile app that was a little disjointed from the website, this new platform, everything would kind of integrate and talk to each other. So things you see on the website would make it to the mobile app, and also modifications and updates to the website as well as the mobile app could theoretically be done on a much a quicker pace and much easier for it to be modified as opposed to the platform we have today. So that's the high level context if anybody's curious what that's about. Does anybody have any open session questions on the website? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. The next open session conversation also about websites. It's about Civic Plus and the Board of Education website. We talked about this in the past when that product was acquired. The goal was kind of more of a mailing list type of product that somewhat morphed into an independent website for the Board of Education, which we do use, but similar and connected indirectly but directly to the conversation we just had about the website in general. Maybe this is an opportunity to reevaluate, do we need Civic Plus? Are we using it in the way we should? Or do we just absorb it into our existing website and just give Board of Education a page? Yes.
Question, which relates to both of our website candidates. On a new GCSD website, do we have, or on the current version, do we have the capability to create a place where someone could say, click here to be added to a BOE only mailing list? And a mailing list order that we could then, that would link somehow through the magic of technology to something that we might say.
Yes, so in that context, yes, we could put any kind of mechanism on the front-facing web page that would portal either into an internal tool to that website tool or to another tool, aka Constant Contact or some other listserv collection tool to be able to create that mechanism for you.
Because the idea was to be able to create basically a mailing list that was beyond the school messenger capabilities.
Right, right. You want a public facing.
And all the school districts have the functionality. It's just a matter of setting it up, right?
There's a lot of ways to do it. Some are easier, some are harder.
Mm-hmm.
There's products from Major Domo from the 80s that sits out there, and you can, but it's complicated versus the easy way, which is the way we would like to go, the easy way.
But creating a whole new website wasn't, okay, my point is, we could come back under the umbrella, theoretically.
And not lose functionality.
Not lose the functionality as long as we can have some way to set it up.
Correct. And what I might offer for consideration and discussion, and not necessarily here, but just as you think about it as a group and how you communicate, how communication has really evolved in our current kind of state of the world, and how much of it is really a lot of the times through social media or that kind of stuff, not as much as email. So you may not want to rely heavily or solely on that as a mechanism for your communication. But yes, technically, yes, the answer is
Absolutely.
Of course, it could also be a way for people to enter their snail mail addresses. I wish to receive mailings, your periodical newsletter mailings from the district if I'm not already a resident. I don't know. Food for thought, food for future discussion.
Sure.
But,
Sounds good.
that was in question.
All right, so we'll
The
move on.
old CEC mailing list could be migrated over into that.
And we also had conversations about, yes, different mailing lists for different topics, et cetera. That could all be considerations of that, right?
Right, and honestly, with the advancement of the tools now, you really have functionality with depending on how sophisticated you want to get. I mean, you have particular members that are assigned to particular committees, depending, like you said, depending on what it's coming in for, you can set up routing rules so they go to particular individuals or they go to the whole group. So we can really have that rich discussion around exactly wish list, how would we want to interact with our constituents? The technology exists.
I foresee something like a checklist. I'm an alumni and I'd like to receive mailings on X, Y, and Z. And that would be a way that we can not only build up our community context, but our alumni. Right, this is for another day.
No, it's okay. It's all helpful. All right, next topic on the agenda, K-12 PLC.
So I'm happy to report out that we've launched our K-12 PLC, which includes myself, Ms. Ferdina as the K-12 technology coach, and all the library media specialists, our technology education teachers at the various levels and in the buildings. We've already started engaging in some of our work. We've developed our charges. 3 primary charges for our work will be to establish a district-wide instructional software technology catalog. That's a comprehensive list of all the tools that are being used and that the district owns, but not only just a listing, but what grade levels are being used, to what extent they're being used, and links with resources for other teachers. So the idea in creating that is we had that there are so many tools out there and available that not every teacher may know what's available. And when I'm designing lessons and I'm designing instruction, there are a lot of opportunities for us to really kind of incorporate the technology we have and use these tools to help enhance those experiences for students and just putting it a step closer into their hands. The other idea is building capacity in the library media specialists and our educational technology teachers, so they really be the conduits in the building along with the kind of supervision and guidance from our instructional coaches. And Ms. Ferdina specifically on building that capacity out to the teachers so we can kind of distribute the work and it's not in the hands of just a few people to do all of that work. So that's one of the charges. Another charge is to roll them into the fold of managing the day-to-day of the Chromebook devices in the building. So once we move to our new model next year, if some kid comes in, they need a loaner, they need a charger, something happened, they need to swap something out, that we have that doesn't rise to the level of I need a technician for this, that they have that in-building support to do those quick swap outs and things like that. And then lastly, is to continue to build out and harness the work around formalizing the New York State Computer Science and Digital Fluency Standards K-12 in a formalized scope and sequence and curriculum mapping, and then getting that embedded more into the lessons. We've already, as a group, as a PLC, engaged in some really great professional development. We all attended a full-day workshop hosted by NICE on implementing the computer science and digital fluency standards. And we really got into unpacking them, not just kind of looking at the domains and the different kind of standard areas, but how does that actually break down to the classroom activities and what types of things can I be doing in the classroom that incorporate coding, typing, engineering, design process, creativity, all of those things and elements into not just technology-based courses, but cross-content areas. So that was a very rich experience for all of us, and we'll continue to build that capacity across the group. So I was very proud of the work that was going on and that Ms. Ferdina is doing to help facilitate that work in our buildings. It's been a great addition having her part of the team now and being able to really branch out into the innovative side of the technology department. So I look for much more, many more things to come and report on as we move forward.
Any questions on that?
So when you were talking about listing the tools used and grade levels and how often they're used, is that also a tool for you to identify what technology we have that might not be getting used much, and then you can have someone find out, is it because the teachers don't know how to use it, or because it's just not worthwhile and doesn't align to their curriculum? Yes.
So that was just making sure you had fully articulated your question. So I appreciate your question because I think you've learned how my brain works now, and that I'm very data driven with what I do. So yes, of course, that information is also to allow us to evaluate the usage, but that in and of itself is not our only tool. Luckily, our integration and single sign-on tool has a whole back end of analytics, so I'm actually able to see the usage and who's engaging in our tools. And luckily, we've already, that was an integral part in this budget planning cycle. But I think the next step is to really tie it to the instructional, purposefulness of it.
Right. Because I think in the past, we found that there's a lot of great tools out there, and either there's not enough time for the teachers to learn the technology, or there's not enough time to figure out how to best use it to support the curriculum being taught. And I'm guessing that's where you're trying to fill that need. And I'm just editorializing now.
Well, no, there were two facets. There was using technology to teach the rest of the content of we do in terms of instruction. And then there's teaching technology itself.
Right.
And so there were a series of things depending on your grade level in which technology was running, so robotics was a big thing. So RJ Bailey had like the Now Robot program. You program these little robots about this tall to tell stories and sing and dance and do various things. You had at Highview, they would have these things where you would say, okay, here's a little robot. You're going to program it on how it's going to go across the room and knock down this pin at the other end. And you go in teams and you compete and all that. And then at the high school level, there's kind of a robotics club, and there was some very simplified version even at like the kindergarten level. And so there were these things. There's coding week, right? That would stand out as, yes, we're teaching technology itself. And then there were all the integrations of technology into regular curriculum. So is the scope of the PLC going to include the, hey, it's technology fair time stuff, as well as the, how do we integrate it into the curriculum?
Absolutely. So I expect as we move forward that we'll be more involved in things like Week of Code and Computer Science Week and all of those national weeks and opportunities. But beyond that, yes, I expect that you'll start seeing a lot more of those activities starting to wrap in and fold out into the buildings and how we're using technology and engaging with technology in and of itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Sorry, that was a little wordy. Yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Moving along, check this out.
And in that, that was a good segue, Trustee Warner. I'm always happy to kind of highlight and showcase some of the great work going on around the district with our students and technology. So even at the earliest levels, our youngest learners, they have ECP, that they're kind of stretching their engineering minds and starting to think about the design process in their own way and what that means and manifest that, working around STEAM activities, engaging with other medical professionals about learning X-ray technologies, and also working through building rockets and tying that into how does that expand our more global view and going beyond our own borders and the planet and out to the greater world, right? At the elementary level, students are working on media production and media studio production projects. I had the opportunity to go and actually be interviewed by some of them, but their ability to engage not only with the technology, but to do the actual production of the videos and add animations, add backdrops, captions, and other narrations to it. It really opens up their creativity and engagement with those tools. And lastly, in the high school, this was a follow-up. I had brought this up before. The culminating activity in Ms. Manning's class is that they had a classroom design challenge. Mm-hmm. So students then presented, Mr. Pugliese and Mrs. Verdina, and some of us from facilities and technology sat in the classroom during presentations and actually got to see a lot of the presentations. And it's an expectation as we move forward, looking at the designs of those spaces, that we'll actually incorporate them into the process, sitting down with Mr. Police and myself and actually looking at planning a project like that and looking at budget and all the different aspects, and then hopefully getting them to see the fruition of their designs take place in their classroom. So a lot of wonderful work in the last month going on.
Any questions on any of that?
No.
We don't still have a partnership with Blue Sky Studios, do we?
With,
Blue Sky Studios?
They
Blue Sky
down.
Studios, the animation, that, you don't know about them, we just don't have it anymore.
I don't believe it.
And Jacob Burns, and I used to go to, I used to go to Jacob Burns every year to do like a film. But
And we
got a lot
actually
of-
had a class in the high school.
And we
We've
had
been
that
taking
in-house.
an
We got
entire
a lot of
semester.
in-house
doing- yeah.
capability with that. Okay, just curious.
Okay. Any new business, open session, new business? No?
I think I asked you earlier.
Okay, excellent. So with that said, if I'm not mistaken, let me stop sharing here for a moment, but I'm pretty sure the next part of the agenda is closed session. Let me just check. Yep, the next part of the session is closed session. So with that said, for our viewing public, we will be going offline and continuing our meeting just for closed session topics related to safety and security. Is there a motion to close the open session, open the closed session?
I move that we move.
That we go into closed session to discuss matters pertaining to district security.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Question.
Live stream.
Would you vote on